Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, glad to have you join us. Alhamdulillah. So everyone, it is already 2:35. So let's get started. Are you ready to get started?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would like to first of all welcome all of you for being here. I really appreciate your taking your time to being here and going into this discussion that we are having today. That is on the conversation dance. Now, probably those of you who have attended the sessions before, you know this is the third week, the third Thursday of the month where the discussion is on meta coaching. So actually the topics for the meta coaching series are taken from Michael's book. I've got it here with me. Yes. Meta Coaching, Volume 2. Oops, I need to hold it here. Dancing Coaching Conversations. So it's basically from this book. So what I'm doing is that I'm taking chapter by chapter to bring to our discussions about the various conversations that we have during coaching. And that is also one of the reasons why sometimes when people they learn about coaching, some people can get stuck and some coaches can get stuck because they do not know which way to bring the conversation in order to bring out the best from the client. So this book that Michael wrote, The Coaching Conversations, it gives us 12 different types of conversations that we can use when we have a coaching conversation with the client in order to bring out the best from the client. Now, before I continue, as a way of welcoming all of you, I'd like to just invite you to introduce yourself in terms of just tell us your name and also where you are calling from. So that's a very quick introduction. So I'll just start off with Jean. Would you like to go ahead, Jean?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jean and I'm calling in from Cheras, KL.
From Cheras. Thank you, Jean. And over to you, Roy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roy Tan. I am calling in from Petaling Jaya at home. I'm actually having, sorry, Marzuki, my late lunch.
Okay.
So I cannot on my video at the moment.
Go ahead and have your lunch, Roy. Thank you. And next, Irene.
Oh, hi, I'm Irene. I'm also calling in from PJ, also at home. So glad to be here. This is my second time with your session.
Thank you, Irene, for joining us. And Mr. Adnan, he is not on the mic. He's not connected. So Mr. Adnan is from MSU, Malaysian Science University in Shah Alam. So I assume that he's calling from Shah Alam because he's using his desktop over there. And Satria, over to you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Satria. I'm calling from Kuala Lumpur. Satria Yusof.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Satria. And also in the chat box, Adnan has introduced himself. Yes, you are the invisible man from MSU. Okay, over to the topic for our discussion, the conversation dance. In the book Meta Coaching, Michael first he went through about 10 chapters to cover on the different aspects of the coaching conversations. And the following 12 chapters, he went into the specific conversations. So we are on chapter 8, which is on the coaching dance. And to start off chapter 8, the topic for this, the first point is called Dancing is the Only Pure Art Form. So that's a very interesting topic title for this part. Dancing is the only pure art form. When I first read it, he put it in open and close inverted commas. So I was just wondering, is he quoting somebody? Dancing is the only pure art form. Then I Googled, yeah, and he was quoting from, take a guess, anybody can guess. Dancing is the only pure art form. If you can imagine a dog dancing and saying dancing is the only pure art form, the dog is called Snoopy, a character from Charlie Brown, Peanuts, Charlie Brown. Dancing is the pure art form. And yes, as a coach, that's basically what you would be doing when you are coaching someone. For example, if you were to put yourself at a time in your life, whether now or previously, when you dance, I mean, you put yourself in the position whereby you were dancing for the first time. Yeah, and typically when you dance for the first time, your whole body is not fully connected yet. Especially if you are, some dances like the line dance, you are standing quite far away from other people, so you don't need to be worried. However, if you are close together, you're thinking about, I hope I don't step on this person's toes. So similarly, with coaching as well, what tends to happen is that in the beginning, we desire to coach well. At the same time, in the beginning, with our initial skills, we are thinking about, what should I do? What should I use? How do I approach this subject? How can so as we are thinking about all of those, then that tends to get in the way of the dance of the coaching conversation. And yet the dance metaphor is a very powerful metaphor that is really apt for coaching, because if you have observed people who dance, I wonder any one of you like to watch people dancing. My favorite, I got hooked to dancing from ice dancing. The ice skaters in Olympics, World Championship, they dance. I can just see that poetry in motion, especially if it is the single performer, the individual events. So there is not much of dance between two. However, when it is the ice dance, during my years, my time last time, there was this couple, Tovil and Dean. They represented UK in World Championships and in the Olympics. It just blows my mind how they can seem to be moving so seamlessly. Yeah, and the energy that is there between the two, it is as if that they are like passing energy around. And there are times one person is leading, there are other times another person is leading, but you can never be sure who is leading at any one moment during that time. So using the analogy of dancing, while the dancers, they have the specific steps that they know, that they have decided on using. At the same time, once they get into the dance, they are blending and sharing their energies and style. And at the top level, I mentioned to you about Tovil and Dean. If you want to look for people who live in the 70s and 80s, you just Google Tovil and Dean. It is so inspirational that it is as if that they dance just the way that we breathe. They are not at all conscious, they are just moving, and it is the rhythm in their bodies that are just creating those movements. So that collaboration is so smooth and seamless. So just as a dance is made up of steps, each coaching conversation is a dance. Each conversation is made up of many different coaching dance steps. So what are these dance steps? These include awakening, challenging, probing, provoking, actualizing, reinforcing, and testing. So that is why in the coaching practice, especially in the meta coaching discipline of learning how to coach, in the very beginning, learning about it, I remember that I was all very uptight, very rigid, trying to think about the steps. So what should I be doing now? So how should I listen? How should I support? Am I fully supporting this person? Then going into the coaching dance about the awakening, challenging, it can become so, so confusing. And yet, when Michael used the metaphor, the coaching dance, in dancing, we generally think that one person is leading and the other person following. In coaching, we may think that maybe the coach or the client is leading, or is the client leading at this point in time. Yet, especially in dance and also in coaching, when we observe closely the movement of the dancers, sometimes it's very difficult to tell the role that the person is playing. It could be the person, for example, like in ice dancing, it could be the person who seems to be following. One person may be leading. However, it could be the person who's behind, who is leading the steps that is going to come forward. So this is what we are referring to when it comes to coaching, because as we explore the coaching conversation, the steps and the energies, they come in together. It's just that what we need to understand is that once we understand the steps, once we understand the core of the coaching, when we go into the conversation, it is the time to just let go and be with that conversation. Okay, I remember as I was attending my meta coach training, my mind was thinking about, in meta coaching, we have the, Roy, you remember the skills? Listening, supporting, questioning.
The drills. Oh, I tell you, the drills.
I'm laughing at us because initially when we start to have the coaching practices, the head is full of all those steps, listening, supporting, questioning, meta questioning, giving feedback, state induction. It is full of all of those techniques. And then we have the benchmark. So what should I do? How should I hold my body to do that? And I remember very distinctly Mandy Chai from Hong Kong, master trainer, neurosemantics NLP, and also meta coach trainer. She came to our group, and all that she did was, she said to us, just focus on getting into the states. So when you are listening, get into the state of presence, get into the state of caring, that's for supporting, get into the state of curiosity, just get into the states. Because why? Because when we get into the state, then we are able to detect the state the client is in. Our states influence the client state. So that's when the coaching conversation, the coach will be able to dance with the client's energies. Energies about their desires, their needs, what attracts them, the attractions, what they are averse to, the energy that comes from their understandings, their decisions, their anticipations, their hopes. So in this dance, in this coaching dance, when Mandy suggested to us to just get into the state, that is when the steps just comes in naturally once you get into the state. Because what the coach is there for is to facilitate the understanding of the client. So as the coach, I don't have a specific agenda. The agenda is set by the client. How do I know that? I ask the client, what is it that you want? So I don't, as the coach, I don't decide the direction of the conversation. The client decide, that's my endpoint. And then dancing with the client's energy, how do we get to that? So that is when I don't know whether I'm leading towards the goal or the client is leading. It doesn't matter. So it's about dancing to get there. So in this dance, the coach will continually lead out. We are leading in terms of creating the safe space for the client to induce states, to challenge, to quality control, to brief and debrief, to confront and question. However, the content will be driven by the client. So in this dance, it is an art rather than the science. The science is in the form of the basic, the core skills that we bring into that conversation. And yet, it is the art of the dance that brings us there. So that's why in meta coaching, we focus strongly on the core skills. And once we get the core skills right, when we enter into the conversation, now it is that dance movement. Yeah. So the science that backs up and provide the theoretical frameworks are the cognitive behavioral sciences that sets out the mechanisms and processes. Yet, I would like to highlight here, yet this theoretical framework, the cognitive psychology, self-actualization psychology, humanistic psychology, this serve as the foundation. This theoretical framework does not teach the spirit or the art of the dance. So the spirit and the art of the dance, we need to learn from the client. We need to let the client tell us which dance are we going into. So what is required from us as the coach is to be real and authentic as a person, being present to the client, being caring to the client, being curious about what is in the client's map of the world, so that we can engage in this coaching conversation. And sometimes it can become scary because the client is the one who's in control. We bring the framework and we allow the client to guide us to the objective that the client wants to achieve in that conversation. So the coach will just ask questions to inquire about the things that are obvious. And sometimes we ask questions about things that are so obvious that they are not seen. You know, like sometimes people have this wallpaper on their homes, and because the wallpaper is so obvious, they don't notice the wallpaper is there. Sometimes I have to think hard, what's the color of the wall in my office? Because I notice them when I'm here. However, as I'm working, I don't notice those. So as a coach, I want to be so curious to ask them about the things that are so obvious, because sometimes the things that are so obvious are rarely seen or rarely felt. So the authentic conversation transforms people, including the coach, the beginning place. And the beginning place for such a conversation is that openness. So the openness for the coach to not be judging, to be perceiving. So this is one of the meta programs that we operate from, that the coach is not judging the client about their behaviors. The coach is just noticing, just perceiving from the client, and the client is just being open to explore their maps of the world, to explore the matrix of their mind. So starting from that openness, then both parties can begin to dance. Okay, so that's the first point regarding the art of the dance. So I'd like to open up for any questions or comments. Just go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to comment. And Cik Adnan, if you want to type in your comments or questions in the chat box, just go ahead.
Hey, Satria here.
Yes,
So
Satya.
you said we must achieve a certain level of openness. How do we know that we have achieved such a level that we can then start?
Okay, so there are prerequisites. So thank you for asking that question. Wonderful question. There are prerequisites when it comes to the mindsets. Yeah? The mindsets that we bring into the coaching conversation that I mentioned earlier, the theoretical framework for a conversation. We are talking about the framework of cognitive psychology, the framework of self-actualization psychology, humanistic psychology. So those framework allows me to be operating from that people are good, people are working well. So those are what's at the back of my mind. It's just that when I step into the coaching conversation, one key state that I induce in myself is the state of know nothing. That, let's say I'm having a conversation with you, Satria, I need to put myself into the state of know nothing, meaning to say, I'm not assuming anything about you. I know nothing about you, and I only hang to every word that you say and use those as descriptors of what's happening inside your inside your mind, inside your matrix of the mind. So when I am in the know nothing state, I'm fully open to whatever that you are telling me. So that is the in meta coaching, that is the one of the core states that we learn to put ourselves into, because when I begin sitting down, having a conversation with you, and I already have some assumptions about you, that will color the way that I engage in that conversation. So I do not want the conversation to be colored by my assumption. So the know nothing state will create this openness. Know nothing state, meaning to say, I don't know anything about you. You have to tell me. And I have to ask question for more information. Okay. Thank you, Satya, for that question. Anyone else? Yes,
Roy here. Yeah, I remember when we were doing our drills in the beginning, I think we did quite a number of drills, right? So in the program itself, I think we do about 8 drills at least, 8 to 10, maybe 12 drills. I think in the beginning, because we are there to learn the methodologies and the techniques and the steps, right? So I think like a dance, we need to first consciously actually know the steps of it. But when you do it in a coaching conversation, if you are so focused on the steps, you lose your presence. And I think when you lose your presence, you don't hear, or you don't hear what actually the client is saying. Because there's a lot of information that comes up from them in terms of their body language, right? So their eye contact, the voice, and the information that's coming out from them. So I think, like you said, in a state of know nothing, we become curious. And when we become curious, I think the coach becomes explorative. We begin asking questions that helps them gain more clarity in their information. And so it's very easy as a coach to get drawn in, like Kesah Benar, like that. Once you hear that, then you get drawn in, and then you get into the drama, and then you feel like you have the same experience before, and then you want to match that experience. Oh yeah, I had a bad boss also. I had a burnout. I had So I think managing ourselves as a coach is critical, because if the dance is being led, then I think it's not a two-way dance anymore, right? So it's like the client's way all the way, and it may not be getting the results that they want. That's important. That's my thoughts.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate that. Yeah, very important point that I would just want to pick that Roy mentioned just now. as the coach, we should not be leading the client to some place that we have from here, right? So what we want to do is we want to go to the space where the client wants to go, not to lead the client. Thank you. Yes, anyone else has got any questions or point? Okay, so let's move to the next point. Learning the art of the dance. What states do you need to enter the dance to stop focusing on the steps and to simply follow the rhythm and energy of the client? Now, Michael gave to us 7 states that are useful for us to get to be able to enter that dance. So there are 7 empowering states. I'll just list them all 7, and then we'll go into each of the states one by one, and we'll probably will discuss them as we go along. Okay, so empowering states. 1 is flexibility. Second one is openness. The third state is the state of focusing on the client as a person with needs, hopes, and dreams. Focusing on the client as a person, and this person has needs, hopes, and dreams. So in that way, it causes my mind to be thinking about what are his hopes and dreams. The fourth state is stepping back to get the ego out of the way, the coach's ego. So that's the fourth state, to step out, to get the ego out of the way. And the fifth state is the willingness to be wrong. The coach needs to be in that state of to be wrong. And the sixth state is the willingness to not take credit. And the seventh state is the state of compassion and genuine care. Okay. Now, in order to be able to enter into these 7 states, to bring these 7 states in, to go into that conversation dance, as a coach, we need to have a higher level of awareness. And this is what we call the meta cognition, to be aware of what we are thinking, feeling. So this is a skill of we call the step back skill, to be able to step back from our thinking, feeling, to be able to step back from our saying, doing, to be able to notice our thinking, feeling, and our saying, doing. Because in this metacognition, this step back position, we can be in a space where we are in a witnessing position. So we are witnessing our own internal thought stream and that of the other person. So to be able to be there fully and completely. So if I were to use some terminologies that we use in neurosemantics, one is to be in first position as a coach. I am being authentic with myself, so and to be emoting from my position as a first party to notice how I feel, and to go into the second position to be empathetic, because to go into the second position helps me to understand what's happening in the client's model of the world. Now, this metacognition is about me stepping into the third position, the position of the observer. It's just that this observer is not in the third position physically, the way that we observe about what people are doing. This is meta position, meaning to say I'm in the position of to be noticing my thinking, my feeling, and noticing how I'm using all of those into my saying and doing, and to be able to be asking questions about what the client are thinking, feeling, because by asking those questions inside of me, it will allow me to ask the right questions from the client that will bring the client to his or her goal. So this is the level of awareness that we need to have in order to enter into the coaching dance. So we talk about the seven empowering states. So let's take the first empowering state, that is flexibility, because this is the state that allows the coach to detect where the client is and to respond in the most powerful and appropriate way that meets the client's needs, and that will lead to the client's desired transformation. So it enables us to step in and out of many kinds of coaching conversations in a fluid and graceful way so that it seems seamless. Remember, I mentioned to you there are 12 types of coaching conversations. So if I, as a coach, enter the conversation thinking that, okay, I'm going to bring in the metaphorical conversation in this session, and holding on to that agenda, I'm not doing the clients any good, because I need to notice what is it that the client needs at this moment, and then to be flexible enough to stop this train of this strategy and bring in another type of conversation that fits with what the client needs. Okay, so that's the first one. So let's open up for questions or discussion with respect to learning the art of the dance. Okay, anyone has got any comments or questions? Flexibility. Are you good with that one? Okay. So let's take another two states. Next state is the state of openness. From the state of openness, when we as a coach, we are operating from openness, it enables us to receive information that we detect and we calibrate our clients. So just take that information and calibrate from the client. Now, this state can be frightening and even terrifying because it means letting go of controlling or even knowing what to do prior to a session. Because now I'm not setting out the agenda. I'm just being open, allowing the client to be to determine the agenda for the conversation. So being open means being present to the current moment of the client's thinking and feeling, and open to whatever emerges. Now, to do this, the coach will need to be able to embrace ambiguity and tentativeness. So not to be so concerned about what's the agenda, because the client is the one who's setting the agenda. Now, the thing that I would just like to mention over here about being open, what is going to be helpful is, the word helpful, another word that I can use is useful for the client, in as much as we are open to the client's agenda. We need to differentiate between the sensory-based language, between what's happening out there with what's happening up here. Yeah, because sometimes the client may be so detailed with what's happening out there, who said what and all that. Now, in a lot of situations, the events that are happening out there are not what's critical for the client. As we always say, it is in the frames. The issue, the problem are always the frames, not the person, not the event. Any event that occurs is not what's causing the problem to the client. is the meanings, understandings, the frames that they have about the event. That's causing the problem. So when we talk about openness over here, when dealing with a client who's overly detailed about what's happening out there, dwelling in that conversation may not be useful for the client. So we want to bring the client up to the meta level, to the meanings, understandings, beliefs, values about what's out there. So when we talk about being open, we are not saying just to be there listening to whatever story from A to Z that they want to mention, because some people, they may go into the detail out there. Yes, that's important for them. It's just that in order to be useful for the client, awareness and clarification, we want to bring back that conversation. So we are not changing the subject. It is still about that. We are bringing the conversation to what's up here, to the level of understandings, beliefs, and frames, because these are the ones that's causing those to be a problem to them. Okay, so this is the next point, the state of openness. So questions or comments?
Marzuki,
Yes.
I think you have coached many clients before. Can you share with us maybe one of the way that we can induce the state of openness to our clients? Yeah, so I think induction of the state of openness in the coach, maybe we can come in with a state of openness, but if we don't receive that openness from the client, then maybe we will move into a separate state, right?
Yeah.
What can we do to induce this state of openness in our client?
Yeah. Good point that you ask here. There are two types of, not two types, two categories of people that we coach. One, the category of people who come to us, they want to be coached. So that in itself is already giving me an indication that this person is open to coaching. So when you have those sort of clients, then that part is already a given. Now, even though it is already a given, there may be situations whereby areas where they consider to be as areas that are off limits and whatsoever. Now, as a coach, what I would remind the client, that very point that I mentioned just now, if there are any problems, the problem is not in you. The problems are your frames. So this is, remember we talk about person and behavior describe different phenomena. So what we are saying to the client, if you are facing any problems out there, it's not about you. It's about the frames that you have about that. So once we sort those frames, then you can sort that. So that also creates that sense of openness in the client, because now the client detects that the coach is not judging me. The coach is helping me find those things that are creating me to be stuck. So to be able to separate person from frames, that is to me already a very good starting point for getting the client to be open. I remember when I was being coached by a master coach, and it appears as if it is routine. However, at every coaching conversation, he will say this to me. He will say to me, Marzuki, this is not about you. You are good and wonderful as a person. This is about your performance that we will be discussing. Are you ready for your feedback? So he would remind me every time. So yes, for a client who comes to us, that will be one of the frames that I typically set with a coaching client, to say that, so this is not about you, it is about the frames that you have in your mind. So once we get those frames right, then you'll have no issues with respect to whatever problems that you are facing out here. So that's one. The other is sometimes we have corporate coaching clients. When I say corporate coaching clients, the companies send them to us to coach. So that we need to do a pre-coaching conversation to set those frames. To set those frames to build rapport, to build relationship, because coaching is basically a relationship activity. So with those kind of situation, we may have people who are not ready and willing to be coached. So as we say in what we typically say, with rapport, anything is possible. Without rapport, nothing is possible. So in those kind of scenarios, what I need to do as a coach is to first establish the relationship before I go into the coaching conversation. I hope that's helpful. Roy, do you have anything to add?
Great point. Thanks, Mazuki. Yeah, so I think the first point is very important as well, right? So to detach that person from, right, the person, the being, and the frames that they have, right? Because many times I think we relate that whatever frames that we have is me, is who I am, and we cannot detach that. So I cannot do anything about it. Yeah, so good point. Thanks, Mazuki.
Thank you, Rai. Yeah, and as I related to you about being coached from that master coach, even though that he knows that I'm a certified coach, he knows I'm a certified trainer, he will always begin the conversation with that frame. This is not about you, it's about the performance. So what I sense there is that we as human beings, we forget. So even though that he knows that I know that, he would create that frame in order to put me into that openness, the state of openness. Okay, so thank you, Roy, for doing that. So I'm just taking this moment to appreciate what my coach was doing to me the last time. He passed away a couple of years ago, so I'm just appreciating the work that he had done. Okay, so moving to the next state is the state of focusing. Yeah, the state of focusing, because the state of focusing balances when we are open and flexible. You see, what happens is that when we are open and flexible, we can go all over the place and not get anywhere. So the state of focusing, it balances the firmness that's required for holding the client's persons and need front and center in the ongoing conversation. By focusing, we can set a relevancy frame whenever that comes up. So asking the question, how is this relevant to who you are, who you want to become, and to the needs and desires that you have presented? Yeah. So because what happens is this, let me just draw out something over here. So when we enter into a coaching conversation, so we start off the current state. So this is where I am, the both of us are now. And as we start the conversation, the client will say, will give me an indication. So asking the question, so what would you like to discuss today? So the client will say, okay, this is what I want to discuss. So that's the desired state. Now, focusing means that I, as the coach, keeps my eye on this. Flexibility and openness allows me to let the client wander around in that conversation. So focusing here is that should they wander, too far away. Yeah? To keep that frame, to be able to bring the client back to the goal that they want. So asking that question. So let's say the client is already over here, asking the question, so how is this relevant to what you want to achieve? So bring back the client's attention back over here. So it will allow us to bring that conversation back. So this is what we are referring to focus, meaning to say, yes, the conversation is open and flexible, and yet with the state of focus, I have at the forefront of my mind, what is the agenda that the client has set? So in case he goes too far away, to bring back the client's attention to that particular agenda. Okay, so any questions or comments on this state? Have you ever had a conversation whereby somebody takes that conversation, goes all over the place, that even after that conversation, you don't know what you were talking about? and when we as a coach, we don't have that focus of the client's desired outcome, the conversation becomes not useful for the client. So we need to bring the client to that. So notice here, we are not putting our agenda. The client is the one who sets the agenda. So we just brings back the client's focus to that particular item. Okay, right. Next is the state of stepping out of our ego investments. Now, being able to step out of our ego investment enables us to be fully present to the client. The coaching is not about us. It's not about how clever, how great, how insightful, or how brilliant we are as a coach. It's about the client. So what's in the best interest for the development, learning, and growth of the client? So that's the question that I keep in my mind, as at the back of my mind, as we have this coaching conversation, to continually ask the question, what's in the best interest for the development, the learning, and the growth of the client? So it's not about me, it's about the client. Okay, so that's the next state. So any questions there? So coaching is not for a diva, or I don't know, what was the male equivalent of a diva? Divo. So yes, Jean.
Yeah, Mazuki, are there such thing, because just now you mentioned some people may be uncoachable. What is considered an uncoachable person?
Part of what is required when we talk about a person who is coachable, one is the meta program of responsibility. We want a person to run their meta program from being responsible, not over responsible or under responsible, to be responsible. Responsible means they are not giving any excuses for themselves, not giving any blame on others about what's happening in their lives. They are looking at what's within their locus of control that they can that they can take action on. So that's the first one, responsibility. The other is we are looking for somebody, a person who is coachable is also someone who is dissatisfied with their current situation and they want to become better. Yeah. So that is a coachable person. And I have had a wonderful opportunity. I remember this client very well because she was a national athlete, so she's used to being coached by the sports coach. So when she came as my coaching client, I consider her as one of the best experiences that I have, because she came into the coaching room with a problem. She may have several problems. She'll come with a problem and we'll decide on which problem to talk about. And this is the thing about a person who's responsible. They come with a problem not to talk about the problem, but to find solutions. Yeah. So even though she's the one who brings the problem, she is curious about what's the solution. And she's ready to explore various ways of achieving the solutions. So, so this is where I come with the third point, prerequisite that I consider a person who's coachable, is that when they come up with possible solutions, they are just raring to go and apply them and test them out. Yeah, so one is operating from being responsible. Second one is having a clear goal about the growth that they want to achieve in life. And the third is being ready to take action. Because sometimes the solution that we come up with may or may not work. However, they are just ready to test them out. So I hope that helps, Jim.
Right. Yes, it does. Thanks, Marzuki.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I ask something, Marzuki?
Yes,
concerning concerning what has been said just now. I would think that many times, as in corporate companies, coaching, just like attending training. Okay, okay, you have to attend the training, or you need to attend a coaching session. You know, maybe the performance is not good. So this person will come to you as someone who's very resistant, who's in your term called uncoachable, lots of excuses, but you still have to do the job. And the HR say you need to go for this coaching session. So, and this person is very problem focused. You know, okay, I have this and excuses. So then would you say that the coach will then have to, I don't know what you call it, what's the term called? Not redirect, but you know, refocus this person to more solution kind of approach. I mean, yeah.
Absolutely, Irene. Absolutely, I agree with you. You cannot coach somebody who is not coachable. So that person is in the state of not being coachable because the frames that has been set about that coaching relationship. Yeah, the frame that has been set is that maybe HR has set the frame. You are not a good performer, and because of this, you must go and be coached by someone. So now the person comes with you with an unresourceful frame.
Yeah, I see it very similar to training, because I'm a trainer and I've come across many participants who say that I'm forced to come. You know, I don't want, and they're very frank with me, I'm forced to come. Otherwise, I don't get this, I don't get that, you know. So it could be applied the same way as in coaching. So I'm forced to be coached and I was told my performance is not good. So how then can we make the session more purposeful, you know, more solution oriented for the client? By what you say about
so that's why I mentioned to you earlier that I consider for those kind of people, there are two parts to it. The first part is the pre-coaching conversation. The pre-coaching conversation is a conversation where you build relationship, you create rapport, you create relationship with the person first, to the extent that now you notice the person is ready to be coached. And for some people, it can take a few minutes. For some people, it can take a few sessions in order to build that. It's just that if the person is not ready to be coached, don't go into the coaching conversation, because the coaching conversation can be tough, because you can challenge. I gave you the example of that client just now, because she was ready to be coached. I'm just happily challenging her to her best performance, and she's just ready to go for it. But somebody who's not ready, being challenged can be painful for the ego. So that's why you need to what I consider as the pre-coaching session is just to get the person to be ready to the point we say, okay, go ahead, coach, I'm ready to be coached. And for some people, it's going to be a few minutes. For some people, it may take several sessions. The key is the relationship. Because once you build that relationship, the trust is built, then the person may be ready.
So are you saying, Mazuki, this pre-coaching session like is similar, it's still a one-to-one, but to build trust and rapport, and probably letting the client knows the intention. I mean, you know, the real intention. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Because if you give the example of, say, trainees coming into your training room, there are some who are not what you call who are not ready to come for training. Yes, I have experiences of people who come into the training room. Many of them, within the first hour, they are ready for the training. There are some who take a couple of days to be ready for the training. Yes, I've had the situation. It took close to 2 days for these people. I say these people because there were 3 of them together. It took 2 days for them to be ready to receive the training. So, with the others, I'm able to push them. But for these people, I just need to be patient with them to build the relationship, and ultimately it turned out. And yes, you do have situations whereby people are not ever ready. I have had the situation whereby someone in the training classroom not ready to be trained to the extent that the other participants were so upset with the person, they just asked the person to leave. I didn't ask that person to leave, but the other colleagues said, you better get out. We don't want you in this here. You are too disruptive. So it can be that way. So bringing it into the coaching context, there are people who, because they have unresourceful frames about coaching, and we are referring to corporate coaching. The frame could be, you are a poor performer, we are going to send you to a coach in order to improve your performance. That's a very unresourceful frame. So maybe with that kind of person, it may take about half an hour or so in order to get rid of those frames. Somebody might come into the coaching room with more rigid frames that are unresourceful for themselves. And some of them, even with the building of relationship, they are not willing to go through. Because when you talk about relationship, there are some people who are willing to build relationships. There are some who are not. A coaching relationship is a relationship. That's why we say it's a coaching relationship. So even when it comes to personal coaching, people who come to me, I say, let's have a chat first for you to get to know me and I get to know you. If we are ready to go into this relationship. So it's all about the relationship. Yeah. You good with that, Irene?
Yes. Would you say, Mazuki, that it's better to sort of like have this pre-coaching conversation as a separate session from the actual coaching itself? Which means that if you suspect that, or the client or the HR told you that, hey, this is going to be a very tough one, so you want to prepare just a simple session to talk to this person first before we go to the first session, rather than incorporate it together with the first session.
Yeah, you can. You can do that. Yeah. Even for private coaching one-on-one, I mentioned to you just now, people who contact me and say they may want to, they are thinking about having a coaching package. So I said, why don't we meet first before you decide on that package? So we can meet first so that you know exactly what's going to happen. So if you feel that we are a good fit, then we can have this coaching relationship. If not, then maybe you need a better coach, somebody who can fit better with you. And as a coach, understanding that to be able to accept that I will not be the best fit for everyone. So to be able to say to somebody, I'm sorry, I may not be the right person to coach you because we are not a good fit. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's just that there are things that are not working well. That's all. And again, that frame is not about you. There's nothing wrong with you that caused us not to be able to get into this coaching relationship. It's just that there is no, we are not matching well. That's all. In as much as I like, I love everybody, I want to be friends with everybody. Not everybody will want to be friends with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So let's take the next point: willingness to be wrong. So this is another state. So as a coach, if in the event that we may make certain assumptions based upon what the client is saying, then we want to check with the client. And sometimes our assumptions may be wrong. So this willingness to be wrong, it really puts us as a coach to the test. It tests us to see if our ego is strong enough to handle being wrong. So one of the, I would say, the word is, the enemy of a coach is wanting to be right. That's a very big mistake that a coach can make. So to be willing to be wrong, because there are times that even our most creative and empowering thing to do in the presence of the client is to accept that maybe the direction that we set out for the client is not the right one, and to be able to say, oops, I made a mistake, I was wrong there. So that's another very empowering state, the willingness to be wrong. And that reminds me that as a coach, we want to embrace the fact that we are a human being, and human beings are fallible. We make mistakes. And the best thing that we can take from there is whenever that we make mistake, we admit our mistake early. Not to give excuses or whatsoever, but to admit the mistake early. Yeah. Any questions? Good. So
just stating a fact, coaching is a very humbling experience. Yeah.
When you mentioned that, I had that moment when my daughter, she's 25 now. She was about, I think about 4 or 5 years old at the time. So that's why now I'm a student of little children. When my daughter was about 4 or 5 years old, she asked me the question, Daddy, why is fire hot? That to me was a very humbling moment, because I was about to answer her, because fire is hot lah. There is a lawyer buru answer. I managed to catch myself and say, whoa, I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah. And for me, I use that as a reference point whenever I'm dealing with people and connecting with people, to be able to accept that I'm a human being. I don't know it all. There are few things that I know. There are much more things that I don't know. So when it comes into the coaching conversation, as a coach as well, there are things that I don't know, and to be able to admit early and quickly whenever that I may make a mistake. So this is very, as what you say, Irene, a humbling moment, to bring that moment whereby I know that I'm vulnerable. I'm not bulletproof, and to be able to accept that. Okay. Anyone else? So let's take the final state that is resourceful for going into this coaching dance, the conversation dance. The final state is the willingness to not take credit. This state tests us whether we are ego-driven or whether we truly care about the client. It is pleasant to take credit when the client succeeds. Yet, if our need to take credit gets in the way and defeats the client from taking full ownership, responsibility, and celebration for successes, then our willingness to step aside from that need may be a significant factor in coaching the client to success. So we are not there for our own, for our own ego. We are there for the client. So it is not about when the client succeed, then tengoklah siapa coach. No, it is not about that. It's about when the client succeed, know that the client succeeds because of his effort. You see, when the client have that coaching conversation, the client have insights about what to do. However, the work in order to make it happen is done by the client. So to be able to just say to the client, well done, you have achieved that. And that comes from your commitment and your industry. You've put in the effort and you are committed. You are the one who takes credit for that. And so this willingness to not take credit is very important for a coach. Otherwise, sometimes we see in sports arena when the team wins, the coach is the one who wants to takes credit for it, to get famous for it. No, it is about the client, to give all the credit where the credit is due. There is the person who does the work, which is the client. Okay, so that's the final state. So any questions?
So far, so good, Marzuki. So I think the last one, I think some leaders in the workplace, we are looking at workplace coaching. I think one of the hardest thing as a leader is to put down that ego, right? And put down that sense of authority and say, you know, I'm here for you. And I'm not here because I want you to perform so that I get credit. Yeah, so I think it sounds simple, but as a leader in the workplace, I think taking on a coaching role and a coach's role is a shared responsibility. But I think it will create a good workplace culture and a sense of security where subordinates are willing to open up and really perform their level best. And if they cannot, then it's fine, right? So then we come back and talk about where went wrong, what can we do about it, and the leader is there to facilitate the process, not to be the one spearheading the process. So that's very important in terms of ego.
Thank you.
Roy, I agree. This is very similar. It's reflected in the book by Jim Collins, From Good to Great. And that's exactly what he said. He said when the team is performing well and achieve astounding result, the leader have to take a step back and credit the success to his team. Yeah, exactly.
So this is in the context.
Right, exactly, because the leader will not be a leader without the team, right?
Yeah, right.
So the leader will not be a leader without the team. So without the people, then you're alone, then you're not a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching a movie the other day based upon a true story. And this point that you mentioned was clearly shown in the movie whenever the team succeeds, the leader just steps back and let the team announce it. When they meet a problem or when they meet a failure, the leader is the one who goes in front and say, okay, so he takes full responsibility for the failure. He takes full responsibility for the problem because he does not want to burden his team about that issue. So this is what the terminology that they use, servant leadership. That the leader is there to serve the team because the team is the one that's getting them there. Okay, so maybe before we end, just to summarize, that there's an art to coaching conversation, and that art involves learning how to dance in a conversation. So this means moving with and alongside the client, calibrating to his or her needs, objectives, and person. It also means cutting through to the heart of things to have a real and robust conversation. To do that, we need to be able to be well practiced in several steps. What are the steps? Flexibility, openness, focus on the client, willingness to be wrong, to not take the credit, and to get our ego out of the way. So these are what are required in order for us to go into that dance and to be able to dance with the client's energy seamlessly to get the client to where they want to go. Okay. Right. So before we end, I would just like to hear a few words from each and every one of you. So I'll just start off because Encik Adnan, he needs to type. So go ahead and do that. So I'll go with Jean. Jean, anything that you'd like to say before we end the session?
Yeah, I just want to say that, I mean, you know, listening to those points just now, that it made me have some realizations because I've been through some coaching before, like group coaching, things like that. And sometimes some things sometimes it worked well, but sometimes it didn't work well. I mean, me being a coachee, not the coach, the coach. Yes. And I realized when you mentioned a few things just now, actually, what exactly it was.
Okay.
So yeah, then
can you share with us one of the things that you noticed that caused it not to work?
Yeah, there was one incident. I think that's what happened because I think it's relevant to your last point when you mentioned that the coach doesn't take the credit. But when we started to have this, it's like a monthly coaching session, but the coach came in kind of with her own KPI. She had a KPI to meet. So she wasn't really there just to help us along with our goal, but she was there with something in her mind. So she judged us based on that.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. And then it became quite difficult because it felt like she wasn't really helping us get to what we want. She had her own agenda. So.
Okay. Wow. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's a very useful sharing from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there is also another area of skill. One is to coach a team, this group coaching. And in a team, you have the team members. So it requires additional skill to coach the team and also to take into account the individual team members. Okay. Thank you, Jean. So I move on to you, Irene.
Being a new coach, this is definitely very great for me. And when you talk about meta coaching, I'm not very familiar with it, but somehow it makes sense. You know, the principles of it does make sense about the agenda not being yours but your client, and about what is that? The being focused on the desired result, what your client wants, and not being personal. Meaning it's not about you, but it's about your performance, or about, you know, what we are going to talk about. It's not about you, who is not good as a person. You are a good person. We are just going. I can relate that when I talk about reprimanding staff, you know, because I'm a trainer, and then when I do that for my participants and supervisors, many of us, I said, many of us, when you reprimand staff, you tend to get very personal. You know, you're always like that, and you're always late, and you know, so that the kind of behavior become a part. You have a mental block. To you, you equate that behavior to that person, so it doesn't work. So I think similarly here as well. So if we always have that frame of thought that, you know, so this person is like that, so there's no way I can help this person, so it doesn't work. Yeah, you're right. You know, it's not about you. You're a good person, right? You have good intention. It's about your performance that we are going to talk about. So I like that, and it actually affirms what I believe in. So thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you very much
Yes.
for that wonderful comment. Thank you very much. Appreciate those comments. Thank you. Yeah. And moving on to you, Roy.
I think, Irene, it's time for you to explore the journey of meta coaching.
Wow, comment. Okay. Yeah.
But I promise you, it's not going to be a smooth ride. It's going to be really tough. But what I've learned is the skills of coaching does not stay with you, right? So it's like our muscles. You need to continuously exercise, practice, and do. I think, and coaching is the journey, because you meet different people, and I can guarantee you there's no two clients that you will meet who has the same frames, the same, you know, the same emotions and the same goals. So it's always a continuous process. I think, and it's important, like Marzuki having sessions like this, right? Thanks, Marzuki, to just refresh us and get us back, you know, with that passion of coaching again. Because again, I also coach a lot of corporate people, and I think early on, one of the comments by who? Was it Irene? That mentioned that, you know, you have a lot of resistance, not only in coaching but also in training. But somehow or rather, it's also a relationship with the client, who is the management of the company, who needs to also, I think, put the right frames before sending their people to us. So again, it's building that relationship with the higher management, who is the, I call them the sponsors, right? So send their subordinates and participants to us, that they also understand the purpose of coaching and what coaching is about. So it's not about correcting a person. It's not about saying that the person is bad, this person has an attitude problem, but rather exploring the reasons and the barriers of why is this person not doing this. Because all of us do things for a reason. There has to be an intention for us to do things. And to get down to, I think, the heart of things. And that's what meta coaching does, right? To go down to the root of why is this person not wanting to do it. There must be a reason, and to understand why, so that we can, you know, unleash that person's potential. So I think, you know, so I think coaching has been very, very interesting for me, very exciting for me, though challenging. But I take this challenge with, you know, openness and flexibility. Yeah, because so I think Irene also says it's a humbling experience, right? So there's so much to learn, so much to hear, so much to explore. But you see a lot of things as we go into coaching conversation, and again, it's a dance, right? So it's like a flow of things. It's not like, you know, I sit down in 8 sessions, I settle everything. I cannot write down, okay, this is the 3 things that we're gonna do. We're gonna get to the result at the end of these 3 sessions. So it's always a continuous fluidity and dynamism in coaching. Yeah, so that's my thoughts.
Wow.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rai. I appreciate those your thoughts. It also summarizes what we have discussed today. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. And Satya?
Okay, so thank you very much, Tuan Marzuki. I find it very useful. So this is my first time session with you on this meta coaching. I became interested because now I sort of run a group for multi-level network marketing business. So so my approach is probably a bit different rather than looking at employees, or it's probably more of business partners or people in your team. And I really appreciate the insight that we can separate the frame of mind. So the person can be separated from their frame of mind and what they perceive from a certain incident, right?
Yeah.
I've also learned somewhere also on another course that there are natural tendencies for each individual in terms of mindset. And if they are aware of that, then they can actually address the issues. So from here, I think this is the coaching part where we can make people, or we can actually look at people and realize that and tell them, hey, you probably can adjust this. Yeah, I think just by simply telling them that you can separate your frame of mind and yourself. Okay, so that's probably what I got from today.
Wow, thank you very much. Appreciate those points. A lot of things that you can take from there that you mentioned just now, that allows us to move people from where they are right now to where they really need to be. So thank you very much for that. Yeah. Thank you. And Cik Adnan, any final comments from you? If you can just put them into the chat box. No? Right. So that's okay. So thank you very much, everyone, for such a wonderful discussion, something that I can take away from each of the points that you have also mentioned. Now, announcement here. Next week, we are moving our discussion into parenting. So next Thursday, you will be on parenting. The topic for next Thursday's meeting is what to do about your difficult child. So that's the topic. So if anyone is interested in that, I'll be sending the information to you later. So with that, I'd like to again thank you. Thank all of you for being here, Jean, Roy, Irene, Satria, and also Adnan. I look forward to seeing you again the next time. So with that, thank you and bye-bye. Assalamualaikum. Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Marzuki, if my difficult child is 25 years old, just like yours, will that be applicable?
Coaching,
Yes.
really coaching.
Yes.
Yes, all right.
I'm also definitely interested in that one, Marzuki.
Okay, thank you so much, Marzuki.
Thank you.
For
Thank
your
you.
sharing.
You guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.